Good evening. This has been awesome. I'm glad I was 6th. I could have been 9th, and I would have been happier to hear everybody's presentation. This is really a lot of fun. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but I'm going to talk to you guys about what's going on in the homelessness world in our city, which is something that I live and breathe with every single day, being a fully recovered West Sider, to use that term. I love that term. So my wife and my son and our 2 dogs moved out of the West Side into the middle of urbanism, down in the middle of the city, and we are fully engrossed and entrenched in the whole issue surrounding homelessness, which I've been involved with for a long time. So what are the facts around homelessness? In LA County, I don't know how many of you are familiar with all this data, but in LA County, there are 48,000 people on any given night, and this was a study that's done once a year, the homeless count. 48,000 people are homeless. So some are sheltered in emergency shelters, but well over half of those, probably 2/3 of those people are unsheltered. In LA City, as you've been reading about, if you don't have your head in the sand, there are 28,000 people. And it's truly an emergency that's not been declared an emergency yet. And in Midtown LA, where I live, there are about 800 people who are homeless. So who are the people experiencing homelessness? They're women, they're men, they're families, they're transition age youth, which is defined by kids who are over 18 and have left the foster system up until the age of 24. Some of those are married, some of those have children. They're the mentally ill, including people with PTSD, not just vets, but other people with PTSD, drug dependents, persons with AIDS, veterans, and all ethnic groups. So right before I moved in the area, and thank goodness for the Beverly Press, I learned about the Midtown Homeless Coalition. The coalition is a group of people who deal with homeless issues in our area, which is the boundaries are Doheny on the west, on the east, Western, on the south, the 10, and on the north, Santa Monica Boulevard. And who is the coalition? It's a group of volunteers who belong to neighborhood councils, neighborhood volunteers, local business employees, concerned citizens, and people who work for some of our social service agencies. What do? We engage, we listen, and we repeat, which means we engage and we listen, and we do the same thing over and over and over again. And if I have time, I will tell you about my engagement and my listening and my family's involvement with one of our neighbors who experiences homelessness. And when we can, we perform CESs. So you can tell these slides are pretty homemade. I'm totally responsible for all of the graphics. Josh tried to help me out, but he did the best he could. So this is not my day job, as you can tell. So we perform CES. Who in the audience knows what a CES is? I know a couple of people asked me, because they did know. Oh, there are only a couple of people who do know. That's very encouraging. You're going to learn about CES. Coordinated Entry Surveys. CES is the data entry system and the connection to services and housing throughout the entire city and the entire county. And we in the Midtown Homeless Coalition are all about doing CESs, and I'll tell you more about it. So again, pardon my slides, and Josh, you fixed these up nicely. But CES, what are the essentials of CES? They have to do with access, with assessing, with information sharing, with navigating and connecting. And what we're doing with CES is, we are engaging with our neighbors experiencing homelessness, and we are sitting down with them, if they will sit down with us, and we are having them fill out a form, which takes anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour, and we find out all about them, and we find out all about what their needs are, where they came from, what kind of sources of income they have or they don't have, whether they have an ID, whether they don't have an ID, and we do all that within 20 minutes to an hour. So what CES is not, it's not just for adults or chronically homeless people. It's not the same as HMIS, and I figure if there are only 2 people in the room that know what CES is, then there are probably less than 2 who know what HMIS is. which is the Homeless Management Information System, which is the system that is used by the city and the county to organize, oh, there are 2 people? Oh, 2 minutes, not just 2 people. All right, I'm gonna go through quickly then. So without CES, Coordinated Entry System, you can see that there's a disjointed amount of information. It's a maze for somebody to have to go through to try and get services or to try and get housing, which is why we have 48,000 people who are homeless. That's not the only reason, but it's a good one. And with CES, we can match people to services and to housing. So it serves as a triage tool. I don't think this slide, you can see some of it. So what it does is assess the immediate safety of somebody who's living on the street. We find out whether they have a history of being, whether they were when they were last housed, how long they've been homeless. Let's see. What their risks are in terms of their vulnerability to illness, or to what diseases they might have, whether they are afflicted, with something that would be life-threatening, what their socialization issues are, their wellness issues. And we go through their eligibility because there are all kinds of housing programs. If they're a veteran, if they have mental illness, whether they've been assessed by the Department of Mental Health Service, and how long that they've been living on the street. If they're chronically homeless, which means they've been living on the street for more than a year, then they can get housed a lot quicker than somebody who's been out there less than a year. And what we do is we do an assessment, we find out, we give them an acuity score, they get a priority score, and then there's a recommendation made. But all this sounds pretty simple. It ain't simple. It's just not simple. And the reason why I say that is because there aren't that many successes when we're dealing with people that are living on the street. So here's some of the raw data, and it's really incomplete. But there have been 2,174 people housed through the CES system as of December 2015. And of the CESs that have been done, there have probably been about 8,000 or 9,000 surveys. So there aren't that many people that get housed because we just don't have housing. CES to me is everything. It's the answer to the people who are living on the street to get them services and to get them housed. And unfortunately, I don't have the time to tell you the story of our neighbor Jerry, but if you're interested about neighbor Jerry, who's been on the street for 15 years and did finally fill out his CES, you'll love that story. If you're a urban filmmaker, you want to do the story about Jerry, not about CES. Thank you.